Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the day 2 of the FTP on disability studies. Today, we are going to explore the fascinating topic of historical representations of disability in literature and media. Our goal is to understand how different cultures across different time periods have imagined disability as not just as a medical or physical condition, but as something deeply tied to morality, spirituality, and society. Disability in classical and Asian literature. In classical text, disability often carried symbolic meaning. Tales from the Greek hero Philostratus from the Iliad. He was abandoned because of his foul-smelling wound, seen as ritually impure, yet his divine bow was crucial for victory. This story shows a contradiction. Disability is both a curse and a source of necessity. In contrast, Indian epics like Mahabharata portray Karna. See, his disability was social, being the son of a charioteer, not a warrior. He was marginalized, but his divine armor and skill in archery made him indispensable. So, in Greece, disability was physically impurity. In India, it was social stigma. Both figures remind us how society simultaneously excluded disabled people while depending on them. Coming to the next slide, we have biblical and mythological views. Moving forward, disability often took on a spiritual meaning. In Greek mythology, Theseus, the blind prophet, sees the future. His lack of sight becomes a divine gift. In India, we see two contrasting figures, that is Dhritarashtra, the blind king whose physical blindness symbolizes the moral blindness, and Ashtavakra, a sage with 8 deformities, whose wisdom surpasses all these. See, the message is very clear. Disability was rarely treated as just physical. It became the symbolical, either punishment, moral failure, or a higher form of spiritual insight. Coming to the medieval and Renaissance literature, in the medieval period, influenced heavily by Christianity, disability was often tied to sin. Think of Quasimodo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He was seen as a monstrous figure, believed to be touched by the devil. Similarly, Shakespeare's Richard III in the Renaissance period explicitly connects its hunchback with villainy. His crooked body is portrayed as a proof of a crooked soul. In Indian epics, the characters like Mantra in the Ramayana or Sakuni in the Mahabharata are physically deformed and morally corrupt, again equating body with character. But counter of examples exist. Lord Ganesha with his elephant head is celebrated as wise and powerful, and Hugo later rewrites Quasimodo as a deeply sympathetic character. These examples shows us society slowly beginning to challenge the prejudice that a different body must mean a corrupt soul. Moving to the next slide, we have the Enlightenment and the stages up behind that. The Enlightenment brings a huge shift. Disability was no longer mainly or moral issue, it becomes medical. Charles Dickinson, Tiny Tim, is not a sinner or villain. He is an innocent child. He is an innocent child whose condition evokes compassion. The story is less about his body and more about society's responsibility to care for him. In modern India, the Right of Person with Disability Act of 2016 marks a similar shift where disability is recognized as a matter of rights and inclusion, not as pity. Films like Margarita with a Straw illustrates this beautifully, portraying disability as one part of full human life, not its defining tragedy. See, disability in early media. Cinema carried these ideas forward. Early films often fell into two stereotypes, that is, disability as a villainy, where scars or deformities mark evil. Next one comes the disability as tragedy, that is, characters reduced to objects of pity. Indian cinema followed similar patterns through films like Do Ankin Bara Hyar, offered more empathetic views. Modern portrayals, however, are far more nuanced than the older cinema. The theory of everything tells Stephen Hawking's story without reducing him to his illness. Breaking Bad's Walter White Jr. has cerebral palsy, but his character is written as a teenager first, not defined by disability. In India, Tara Samilkar reframes dyslexia as a learning difference. Burfi presents a joyful, deaf, and mute protagonist, and Margarita with Straw portrays a young woman with cerebral palsy navigating love, sexuality, and independence. Yet challenges remain. Representation is still very low. Only 2.3% of the speaking roles in Hollywood films feature disabled characters. Authentic voices behind the camera are also missing, making stereotypes harder to break. Coming to the conclusion, this I've already told, that is the challenges in modern disability portrayals. The statistical data is mentioned in this slide. Coming to the conclusion, so that we have learned across history, disability has been represented as moral punishment in ancient and medieval times, medical condition during the Enlightenment period, rights and diversity in the modern era. But even today, stereotypes like the tragic victim or the superhero still persist. As students, as scholars of the disability studies, and perhaps creators of media, we must ask, how can we move toward authentic, complex portrayal that see disabled characters as whole people behind pity, behind fear, behind stereotypes? I've given some more references for you to check, like the name of the movies I have used, the name of the works I have used. Thank you.